Before I start rushing through all my slides, there's one link I would like to make. And this morning, Matthias gave a presentation of WorldVis, and there was one question from the audience about how do I create content for my virtual worlds. And I don't know who asked the question, if that person is in the audience. If he's not, that's a real pity, but okay, but I'm going to touch the subject, right? So let me tell you what this demonstrator is about. What we wanted to achieve with this demonstrator is to virtualize a person, to create an avatar of yourself. And ideally, we wanted to achieve that with just one push of the button with off-the-shelf components, so anyone can really, it is affordable for anyone. And without any elaborate setups or user interactions that you have to do. So you may wonder why we want this is because our virtual worlds are full of content. Content is everything that you see. It's everything that you hear, and all of this content it's created by true artists. I mean, it's very, very, very difficult. My colleagues and I, we're software engineers, so that kind of implies that we're, well, not very artistic. I would call myself artistically handicapped even, somewhat, but I've tried making 3D content in the past, but it's just not my cup of tea. So, how did this all start? Last year we had 2 students do an internship at our place, and we had them explore 3D scanning with the Kinect sensor. So the results they were quite good, although the process in itself it was a bit tedious. As you see Stan here, he's crawling over the desk, to get everything into the scan, and he had to move just very, 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 very slowly because otherwise the Kinect would lose its tracking. Now, this is kind of the end result, and as you may see, the resolution is, well, somewhat so-so, but there have been advances in scanning technology, in sensor technology, that will make this better. Now, the moving very slowly, as I just mentioned, losing the tracking, that's an algorithmic challenge. And I also think that advances have been made in that area. So, back to the subject of the demonstrator. So, what we want to do is we want to create an avatar of someone. And what I've done is I've split this up into like 3 stages. First off, I'm going to talk a bit about scanning, which is gathering all the information from a depth camera and storing that for processing. Now the second one is reconstruction. So you take the information from the camera that you got from the scanning phase, and you put it all together into a 3D mesh. Now we're going to also do some interesting algorithms there to put an animation system on top of that phase automatically. Now, the third one is animation. And I'm going to show you some very basic animations that we have put in. So let's start with the scanning thing. So what we use is a depth camera. And these depth cameras, well, what comes out looks like a normal picture, like you take with a normal camera. But instead of a color, every pixel is basically a depth. What we use is an Intel Creative solution. It costs about 200 euros, so that's already affordable for an end user. Now, there are 3 different main technologies of depth cameras, and I'll just go through them very, very briefly to give you an idea of what's out there and how it works. Oh, first this. This is the scanning process in itself. So our camera, what it outputs is a color image on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you see the depth image, or at least the point cloud that comes out of it. So it's like a 3D representation. Every black dot there is one of the pixels in depth image. So the first type of camera is what the Kinect is, the first Kinect. It's a structured light type of camera, so what it does, it sends out a pattern of speckles out into the room, and then it has an infrared camera that reads that back. So based on the deformation of that pattern, it knows how far away something is. So you can imagine if you have two dots in this pattern and they're very close together, you know something is very far away. And when they're very far apart, you know that they're very close. So that's basically how this technology works. Now, one of the disadvantages of this technology is that the advertised resolution is not really what you get. So the old Kinect has like 320 by 240 pixels advertised depth image, but you will not see that back in your geometry, and that's because of the processing that happens internally. Now the second type of camera, and that's what we used, is a time-of-flight camera. And basically what it does, it sends out a pulse of light, and then it measures how long it takes for it to come back. Now there's also some interesting processing going on internally. I will not go in depth on that here because it's quite a complicated matter. But these types of cameras, they're becoming more affordable right now. As I said, this one, the Creative that we used, costs about 200 euros. And what is also very interesting is that the new Kinect has also one of these types of sensors on board, and it has twice the resolution as what this one has. Now, lastly, there are laser scanners, and we did not explore that for this project because they are simply way too expensive. However, for 3D scanning, it is very interesting because it has a very high resolution. It goes to up 1/10 of a millimeter. Whereas these cameras, well, I don't know what about the depth resolution exactly, but in terms of horizontal and vertical resolution, you got about 1 centimeter up to 3 millimeters if you're lucky. Also, to come back to Matthias' talk this morning, he mentioned the Kinect 2. He said it was awesome an awesome technology, and I'm really curious what the resolution is on that camera. Now, for scanning a face like we want to do, is ideally you want to have a resolution of about 1 millimeter to get all the fine details within the face. But we didn't have the budget for a big laser scanner, so we went for this one. So now we have acquired the data from the sensor. So we have the depth images, or the point clouds, and we have the color images. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do reconstruction. And how that works as follows is, let me just go back there for a second. On the one hand, you have the geometry, and you can map that on top of each other. So the geometry is reconstructed into a solid mesh. So we use a very simple version for this. So when you have two adjacent pixels in your depth image, you can simply connect them together, and from there on, you know that they're interconnected in real world too because they're adjacent in the 2D picture. So we simply connect those, and from there on we construct a 3D mesh. We just take one frame though. Now, once we have the 3D geometry, we map the color image on top of that, and what you get is something like this. So you see some artifacts here and there, and that's because for this demonstrator we only took one frame. So the sensor has some noise in it. But if you take multiple frames and you do some averaging, there are algorithms out there that can do that for you. There's even software out there that can do that for you. You will get much better results. Now you can also make a scan of someone all around. So now we have the solid geometry. And the next step is to put the animation system in place because we want to animate this face. So what we did is we have this face tracker running in the background. And this face tracker, it detects all kinds of points within the face, points of interest, so such as the center of the eyes and the corners of the mouth and a lot more. Now what we do is we want to know what the position is in 3D. So we do a 3D projection from the 2D face scanner into 3D. And then we know where in 3D these points are located. And from there on, we can start mapping our animation system. Now, this face tracker, it has a number of drawbacks. Their face trackers in general are very sensitive to lighting conditions. Well, obviously, it will not work when it's dark. But also in certain lighting conditions, such as very hard light that comes from one side, these things have trouble with that because one side of the face is overexposed, the other side of the face is underexposed. It's basically in the shadow. And somehow the face trackers can't deal with that very well, at least the face tracker that we used. So instead of using the color image, there are also methods of extracting facial features in the 3D image. This is an interesting subject. We did not explore that further in this demonstrator. But in living room conditions, if you want to make a scan of a face for avatar creation, it's interesting because the 3D scanner works with infrared light. So it will not have any trouble with directional light or lighting conditions or dark rooms. Now, once we have those facial landmarks, we can start getting the animation system into place. So what I did is I modeled this like the human anatomy, so along like muscles and bones. This offers the flexibility to place the animation system independently of the geometry, so it makes calculations a bit easier. Now, what we do first is we create a cut in the geometry because we want to open the mouth of our avatar when it talks, for example. So we use the landmarks that we found along the mouth, so the corners of the mouth and the center of the mouth, and we create a cut along that line. Now, the next step is to figure out where the muscles go. So this is one muscle, it's the zygomaticus, and you use it to pull your upper lip upward. So it's kind of the smile muscle, use it to smile. And it's located relative to some of the landmarks in the face. Now, this is not an exact science, so I thought it would start somewhere halfway between the corner of the eye and the corner of the mouth. So it would be located like that. Now, we also put some other muscles in place, of course, for the other side, but also the muscles to pull the upper lip downwards. And lastly, there's a circular muscle that pouts the lip, like you're giving a kiss to someone. Now, all of these muscles, they are used to animate the mouth. And that's something that I would like to talk about in the following part of the presentation. And that's the animation phase. So now that we have reconstructed this, we can actually start animating the face. So every muscle within this face, it can be contracted. And what we use for this demonstrator is we use simple linear interpolation. based on the muscle contraction. So when you pull the muscle, everything within the muscle area is moved relative, or the geometry within the muscle area is moved within that range. Well, you can think of other types of animations, but there was simply not enough time to put all of that in. Now, all of the muscles around the mouth, as are shown here, are used to animate the mouth. And how much every muscle has to be contracted for a certain animation, it's quite a delicate matter. When you pull it too much, you will get strange artifacts. And when you pull it too little, you just won't see anything. And when you start pulling geometry in opposite directions, well, very strange stuff happens. So one of these delicate balancing acts is how the mouth muscles move based on speech. And that's the last thing I would like to explain to you in this demonstrator. Because what we did is for the mouth animation, we used speech analysis. Now, the reason why we did this is the vision was to use this avatar and the animations in living room conditions with off-the-shelf hardware. So I don't think you can expect from an end user to have a camera pointed at their face at all time to do the image processing to see the mouth position. So we used speech or audio processing for that. There's another reason why we did this, and that's because audio processing in general has less latency. I've played around with the face record that I showed you earlier, and the performance, it's very slow. It really pushes on the performance of the whole thing. Audio processing is a lot lighter than that. So, how does this audio processing work? So whenever we speak our voice, it has a certain pitch, right? But what we do not hear is that there are multiple frequencies or multiple pitches within our voice at one single time. This makes the difference if I were to pronounce an A or an O. What you hear is the different frequencies within that voice shifting a little bit. They're coming closer, or they're shifting upwards or downwards, and that's how we differentiate between all the different vowels that we hear. Now, the balancing ratios of these different pitches within our voice can tell us something about the mouth shape. So what we do is when we process the audio, we extract the energy in different frequency bands. We try to detect the pitches within the voice. Now, what comes out of that is our audio features, basically. So every audio feature represents a certain the energy of a frequency the energy in a certain frequency band. The method we use for that is called MFCC. There are many different types of audio analysis or audio feature extraction, but this is the one that we use for this. Now, when we have these audio features, we throw them into a statistical model. And this statistical model then crunches something, and it yields a mouth width and a mouth height. Now, this statistical model, it is created with reference data, so it has to be trained. So what happens is people are fitted with sensors on their lips, or they're monitored with video processing. And as they speak some sentences, their face is analyzed, the shape of their lips is analyzed. Now, this data is put into a training method for the statistical model. So later on, when you put speech in, the width and the height come out. The problem with these statistical models, when you have one fixed model, is that they are made for the average person. Now, we all know no one's average. So when you're animating someone, you want to get some better results. And what you can do is you can refine these statistical models a bit. So in living room conditions, what you could do is you could have a user pronounce a couple of sentences and analyze the face and the mouth shape, and you can refine the statistical model with that to get a more accurate and more realistic animation. So that's the last bit of technical stuff. So I hope you got a bit of an idea of what's going on behind the scenes of this demonstrator. I mean, I only scraped the surface of many of the technologies, but there's not a lot of time to go really in depth into some of the subjects. But I hope you got an idea of the multitude of technologies and disciplines that are involved in something like this. I mean, you have camera capturing, you have graphics, you have 3D geometry calculations, you have audio processing, you have statistics going on, you have to know a bit about human anatomy, and there's even a bit of perception to get the animations right. You have to know a bit about that too. So you want to see the end result, of course. This is the end result. Now, my boss couldn't find me a better model that is more visually appealing. But what you see here is basically my face scanned in 3D with the muscles mapped on top of that, the animation system, and you just saw the animation. There are really numerous improvements that can be made on this demonstrator. And I really welcome you to share your thoughts with me about this, because I'm really interested in how to improve all of this. But the most important thing is that I believe it's feasible to virtualize someone in living room conditions with affordable hardware, without any complicated user intervention. You know, it becomes attainable for anyone, I think, to create an avatar, but also I think it becomes attainable for people to create 3D scans, to extend our virtual world with their own content. So, and that's even for me, the not so artistic software engineer. So, I would like to thank you for your attention. So, that's it.
Thank you very much, Johan. Are there any questions?
Are you aware of the Autodesk 123D app?
Sorry?
The Autodesk 123D app, you know it?
It doesn't ring a bell with me.
You take several photos, round about the
Yeah.
face can be ahead. You send the photographs to Autodesk and they will compile a 3D model.
Okay.
You know it?
Yeah, I'm also familiar with the concept of 3D reconstruction from flat images. Now, the disadvantage is that it's very hard to extract geometry from 2D images. Even if you have a lot of images, you get artifacts. Now, these depth cameras, they basically give you this information for free. So I think they're a good alternative to those kind of processing methods. And I also think that they're cheaping in terms of computing power.
More questions? Okay, then. Thank you very much, Johan.
Yeah. Thank you.